Preteen girls, their rates of depression are skyrocketing. I always feel like we're hearing that no matter what the situation is, the era that we're in, or the influences behind it, but still it's skyrocketing at an alarming rate now. So much more than the younger generation, because according to the most in-depth US survey intended to examine the challenging facing girls grades 5 through 12, they say it's gotten really bad. It was published by the Girls Index 2023 report. And it concluded that the survey results say that more than 17,000 girls have gone through this problem from Newsweek. Girls as young as 10, they're experiencing significant declines in self-confidence as they consume social media at these unprecedented rates. Only 5% or fifth and sixth grade girls reported feeling sad or depressed every day in 2017, which is the first year of the survey. That number tripled to 15% in 2023, this year. The decline in happiness occurs as less preteen girls describe themselves as confident, dipping from 86% to 68% during that same 6-year span. Young girls are also experiencing fears about the future, 52% indicating that they're not sure if they're smart enough for their dream career. And that's up from 23% at the beginning of this in 2017. And of course, there's more aspects to this as well than just their interests on the internet, because each person is a little bit different. How about folks here? Because all the mental health concerns pointed out in the survey came alongside a significant uptick in social media use by this generation. A whopping 95% of fifth grade girls reported using social media this year, and 46% spend 6 or more hours per day doing so. A little bit more on these numbers from Lisa Hinkleman. She's a PhD and she's a principal investigator of this Girls Index. Girls' reports of sadness and depression increased in every grade. However, the rates of daily sadness tripled for fifth and sixth grade girls. The youngest girls are now reporting the levels of stress, self-doubt, sadness, and insecurity that have typically been reported by much older teens. Kids are growing up faster, Adrian. That's what they're having to deal with, from, I'm sure, the way the food is handled to the interactions, knowledge of things that maybe kids that are 10, 11, 12 years old before didn't have knowledge of, the spread of information, and then, of course, judgment surrounding it. So depression levels are up. And we hear this a lot of times, I think. I've heard it from Republican Congress folks, senators, of course, anybody's legislating about what we need to do something about this social media and how it's destroying our children, along with COVID as well. They're sheltered. They have a different experience growing up. It's kind of the nature of the game and the way they approach these things, and it's affecting them. But again, I've gone from talk about punitive versus preventative. In this case, how do we prevent something like this? It's society kind of being thrown on people in larger rates than they ever had before. And society kind of sucks.
Yeah, for real. And the thing is, it's like, it can truly be a blessing, like social media, the amount of knowledge that I have gained about people being able to share their knowledge and their experience. Like it's incredible. We used to have to rely on having our local library, and that was still extremely limiting. Now we can create our own feeds where we're getting information and insight. And so that's an incredibly empowering thing. At the same time, people also get to impose upon us their ideas of how the world should look or what looks best. And that can create insecurities in others. And so I think if we are going to enjoy the benefits of having access to social media, we also need to help children really protect themselves to some extent from the detriments of it. And that might be having better mental health, also uplifting people who don't necessarily fit this cis, white, het, slim, beautiful norm kind of ideology, and just letting people know that they are supported. But whatever it is, we've got to do something, because we don't want people suffering from depression and taking actions that could hurt them or others in the long run.
And other things sprout from that as well. Depression, or then there's self-medication in whatever form that someone may want to do that in and engage in at earlier ages than many people would want to see. But again, I wonder, because this is the reason why they're focusing, I believe, on tween girls is, throughout our society, how women had been kept under the thumb. Again, we have a patriarchal society, had been kept under the thumb of so many folks. And there's these expectations of them. There's these thoughts about folks who don't stay within those expectations. Yeah, all that still exists. And it's easier for people, keyboard gangsters, anonymous folks with no face or name, really saying and doing whatever they want. And it affects others. Or even folks who do identify who they are. They don't care because I can type it, or I can hurry up and click it through my phone and then say anything I want. And I wonder, in other oppressive type of groups or lower level considered groups in our society, from LGBTQ teens to Black teens, Latinos, Asians, anybody who you'll see being many times in our society shoved to the side. It's almost enhanced when it comes to this. So the numbers on those type groups, I'm sure, are just as bad, if not worse, in many ways. But then again, this is what I thought, Adrian. What are the numbers on boys? And not necessarily the depression, the same age range, 10 to 12 or 13 or so. I'm sure there's plenty of depressed young boys as well, too. But how many maybe young boys are affected the other way by these types of things? There's an empowerment or this expectation that boys have to be a certain way, have to react to girls this way, say these types of things, fit in. It's always been that way even before the age of the internet and interactions and social media. You're trying to fit in, so maybe some boys may say or do some things to think, this is how boys act. I'm sure it's enhanced on the internet. I should say this, I should say it that way. I gotta disagree because that girl, there's no way she thinks this, and that. And it does contribute to maybe some of these thoughts about lack of confidence, not sure if they really are up for their lifelong dreams, things like that. We're an interactive society. So we should also talk about how some of the negative influences are coming down on our society to continue to create these types of, let's keep it real, horrific type of interactions.
Yeah, no, I agree. When it comes to boys and how it's impacting them, I think that's important to look at, because as we're seeing with a lot of research coming out showing that men of a certain age are lacking in friendships and that there's considerable loneliness and depression there. This would be the time to look at how are these young boys coming up before they become men, and do they have the skills that are necessary to form bonds that help with their self-esteem? Because if they are building some idea of self-esteem that's hinged upon tearing down young girls, whether it's online or coming and lashing out at people, that's not self-esteem at all. If anything, that's rooted in sincere insecurity. And so I think it's incredibly important to look at what's going on with the young minds that are coming up, because we don't want to have a generation of people who are broken. And that seems to be what we have, because we're not equipping them with the tools to go ahead and navigate this new terrain.
There's always going to be some creeps in the middle of the opportunity zones, like the Andrew Tates of the world, who know what to say and how to say it and get these types of mindsets embedded in these kids' minds. Again, my kid's going on 12. Like Andrew Tate is a normal figure that these kids talk about. The boys talk about on a regular on a regular basis. And I was like, he's a piece of garbage, right? Just make sure you remember that. Like, he understands that, but sometimes you have to check in. Like, so what is it's happening in your brain? What is it you think society is supposed to expect from you and expect you to be like? You got to check in. And you can't even always do it that way, because then I can tell you everything.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.